The massive silver ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, causing air traffic across Asia to halt as it made its trajectory towards Seoul. News cameras from every nation captured the moment, humanity's first official contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. The vessel settled gently in the cleared area of Olympic Park, its hull gleaming under the autumn sunlight. For 3 hours, nothing happened. Military personnel maintained their positions while civilians pressed against barricades, smartphones recording every moment. At precisely noon local time, a seam appeared in the ship's side, widening into an entrance. 4 beings emerged, tall, with iridescent skin that shifted colors with their movements. Their heads were elongated, with large almond-shaped eyes that blinked vertically. Ambassador Song took a deep breath and stepped forward as Earth's chosen representative. The veteran diplomat had been selected for her calm demeanor and exceptional crisis management skills. Behind her stood June, her younger assistant who specialized in theoretical xenolinguistics. "We welcome you to Earth," Song said clearly, performing the greeting gesture that had been broadcast globally since the aliens had first made contact through radio signals 6 months earlier. The tallest alien stepped forward. "I am High Counselor, Trill of the Galactic Concordat. We bring greetings from the 37 united species of civilized space." The words came through a small device at the alien's throat, translating perfectly into various Earth languages simultaneously. Song maintained her diplomatic smile even as she noted the subtle emphasis on civilized. Beside her, June shifted slightly, also catching the implication. The formal welcome ceremony proceeded as planned, with representatives from Earth's nations coming forward one by one. Throughout the event, Trill and the other aliens made comments that initially seemed like simple observations. "Your technological development is proceeding along expected lines for young species," Trill noted while examining a quantum computer display. "With proper guidance, you may achieve practical interstellar travel within a century or two." Another alien, introduced as Science Director Mool, studied the architecture of the Welcome Center. "Remarkable structural engineering considering your limited understanding of molecular bonding." June leaned close to Ambassador Song. "They're talking to us like we're clever children," he whispered. Song nodded almost imperceptibly. "I've noticed. Let them underestimate us for now." The delegation toured Earth's proudest achievements: advanced research facilities, sustainable energy plants, the orbital station that represented humanity's first steps into space. At each location, the aliens expressed what they clearly thought was generous praise, but their words carried unmistakable condescension. At the Fusion Research Center, Trill examined the experimental reactor. "A noble effort. Your approach is somewhat unconventional, but that's to be expected without proper guidance." The lead scientist, Dr. Min, smiled politely while her fingers tightened around her tablet. "We look forward to learning from the Concordat's experience." Later, during a private moment, Song gathered her team. "They see us as primitives," she stated plainly. "But they're offering membership in their Concordat," pointed out one of her advisors. "That must count for something." June pulled up data on his screen. "As a protectorate species with observer status only, we'd have no voting rights for at least 50 years. "They want our resources," Min added bluntly. "I saw how they scanned everything. They're particularly interested in our water and certain rare minerals." Song considered this information. "Then we proceed carefully. We accept their invitation but maintain our independence where possible." That evening at the formal dinner, Counselor Trill made the official offer. "The Galactic Concordat extends protectorate status to Earth. Your species shows promise, though. You have much to learn. We will guide your development and protect you from less benevolent forces in the galaxy." Song bowed respectfully. "Humanity is honored by your recognition, High Counselor. We look forward to contributing to galactic society while learning from your wisdom." The alien seemed pleased with this response, missing the subtle assertion of contribution rather than mere acceptance. After the ceremonies, as the delegation prepared for departure, Trill approached Song privately. "You handle yourself well, Ambassador. Not all emerging species adapt so quickly to their place in the cosmic hierarchy. Humans are adaptable, Song replied. It's our greatest strength. A useful trait for a protectorate, Trill agreed, missing her point entirely. The Concordat has guided many young races to maturity. Some take centuries to reach even limited self-governance, but those who follow our guidance prosper. And those who don't? Song asked casually. Trill's skin flickered with ripples of dark blue. Those who resist guidance often require firmer management. But I'm certain humans are intelligent enough to avoid such complications. After the aliens departed, promising to return in 6 months with the formal protectorate agreement, Song called an emergency meeting with global leaders. They see us as children, she reported. Intelligent pets at best. But the technology they're offering, began one president, will come with strings attached, finished Song. They want compliance, not partnership. June presented his analysis. Based on their translator devices, they understand us perfectly, but choose language that establishes hierarchy. They're not hiding their superiority because they don't think we're smart enough to notice. Min spoke up from the science division. They've underestimated us. Their scans missed our newest research facilities. They think we're decades behind, where we actually are. Song nodded slowly. Then perhaps we keep it that way. We accept their protectorate status, learn everything we can, but quietly continue our own development. Playing dumb? Asked a general. Playing smart, corrected Song. Sometimes the greatest advantage is being underestimated. The meeting concluded with a unanimous decision. Earth would join the Concordat as offered, but preparations would begin immediately for a future where humans would demand true equality, one way or another. Important, when citations are needed, use tags with proper index attributes. Example, this is a cited claim from Document 1, Sentence 3. For multiple sentences, this cites Document 1, Sentences 3 through 5. For multiple sections, this cites 2 different sections. The Jieyang Research Station orbited Jupiter, a shining testament to humanity's growing presence in space. Built after Earth joined the Galactic Concordat, it housed 31 of humanity's brightest minds who studied the gas giant while also learning from alien scientific databases the Concordat had reluctantly shared. Director Kang moved through the station's main laboratory, checking progress reports. 6 months had passed since Earth became a protectorate species. The title still bothered him, but the scientific knowledge gained was undeniable. Any messages from your brother today? Kang asked Captain Jin, the station security officer who had just entered the lab. Jin nodded. Min says the Defense Council is pushing for more independent research. The Concordat keeps refusing to share weapons technology. They don't think we're ready, Kang replied with a slight frown. Apparently, we need another century of moral development before we can be trusted. Their conversation halted as emergency lights suddenly flashed. The station's AI announced, "Unknown vessels approaching. Configuration does not match Concordat. Registry." Jin rushed to the security console. 3 ships with angular predatory designs were closing fast. "Attention, unidentified vessels," Jin broadcast. "This is a peaceful research facility under Concordat protection." The response came as weapons fire. The first blast rocked the station, breaching the outer hull of the east wing. "Evacuation protocol," shouted Kang, helping injured researchers toward the escape pods. The station's limited shields collapsed under the second volley. Jin managed to launch 2 escape pods before the attackers locked on with some kind of beam that froze the remaining pods in place. "They're boarding," Jin reported grimly. Distributing the station's few defensive weapons to his security team. The attackers cut through the airlock with frightening efficiency. They were tall, reptilian beings with scaled armor and expressionless vertical pupils. Without warning, they fired stun weapons that dropped humans where they stood. "We claim these specimens for the glory of the Vorlax Empire," announced their leader, as Jin fought to stay conscious. "Their biological adaptability will be studied extensively." Before darkness took him, Jin saw the aliens efficiently sorting through unconscious humans, selecting 14 for transport, while callously venting sections containing the others into space. 3 days later, Min stood before the Concordat Council on their central station near Mars. His military uniform was perfectly pressed, despite having not slept since receiving news of the attack. 17 confirmed dead, he reported, voice steady through sheer force of will. 14 taken, including my brother. We have identified the attackers as Vorlak's forces and request immediate Concordat intervention for their rescue. High Counselor. Trill shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The other council members exchanged glances that Min recognized immediately. They had already decided. The situation is unfortunate, Trill began, his translator conveying his diplomatic tone. However, the Vorlak's empire has certain historical claims to your outer system that predate Earth's discovery. Claims to Jupiter? Director Park from Earth Defense asked incredulously. The station housed unarmed scientists conducting approved research. Elder Nisk, the oldest council member, leaned forward. The Vorlaks are a complex species with territorial instincts that sometimes override diplomatic considerations. They view any presence in claimed territories as provocation. We had no warning of these claims, Park insisted. And our people were taken, not just killed. We demand their return. The council members shifted uncomfortably before Trill responded. A rescue operation would require military action against the Vorlaks. The peace treaty maintaining galactic stability is delicate. Min stepped forward. My brother and 13 others are being held captive. The Concordat promised protection when we joined. Protection within reasonable parameters, clarified Trill. Direct confrontation with the Vorlaks over 14 individuals from a non-essential member species cannot be justified against the risk to galactic peace. The chamber fell silent. Min's face remained expressionless through years of military discipline, but his hand tightened on the ceremonial sword at his side, a gesture not missed by the more observant council members. Then Earth will mount its own rescue operation, Park declared. Elder Nisk shook his head. That would violate your protectorate status. Earth is not permitted to engage in independent military actions. Additionally, you lack the technology to challenge Vorlak's defenses. So we should abandon our people? Min's voice remained controlled, but cold. Sometimes, said Counselor Moole, with what he clearly thought was wisdom. Regrettable but necessary. Sacrifices must be made for the greater harmony of the galaxy. The Earth delegation stood frozen. In that simple sentence, the true nature of their partnership with the Concordat became crystal clear. Later, aboard their ship returning to Earth, Park paced while Min stared at the stars. They never intended to treat us as equals, Park said. No, agreed Min. We're resources, amusing primitives, expendable. The President has called an emergency session. All nations, no exceptions. Min nodded. The Concordat's databases we've accessed contain significant technological information they haven't realized. Enough to attempt a rescue? Park asked. Not yet, Min admitted. But the Vorlaks don't know how quickly humans learn. Neither does the Concordat. Park placed a hand on Min's shoulder. We'll get your brother back. Yes, Min said with quiet certainty. And when we do, the galaxy will learn an important lesson about humanity. What's that? Min finally turned from the viewport, his eyes reflecting the cold light of distant stars. That we never abandon our own, and we never forget those who stand in our way. As their ship accelerated toward Earth, emergency meetings were already beginning across the planet. The Concordat had made a critical error in their assessment of human nature. They had assumed humans would behave like every other species they'd encountered. They were wrong. The underground facility beneath the Jeju Island Research Center hummed with activity. 3 weeks had passed since the Concordat refused to help rescue the captured scientists. Earth's response was not what the aliens had expected. Director Park moved through the facility, observing teams of engineers and scientists working with unprecedented cooperation. Old national rivalries had been set aside in the face of a common threat. He stopped at a workstation where technicians modified communication equipment. How soon? he asked. The lead engineer looked up. 2 days. We've adapted the concordate translator technology to interfere with Vorlax systems. They won't expect it. Park nodded and continued to the next station, where a team worked on hull materials. Former competitors now shared secrets freely. Russian metallurgists collaborated with Korean nanomaterial experts and Brazilian thermal engineers. In the training chamber, Captain Min led rescue volunteers through simulations. Using data pieced together from the Concordate's databases, they practiced moving in Vorlax environments. The aliens had never shared information about the Vorlax, clearly not expecting humans to face them directly. Again, Min ordered after a failed attempt. They have different visual processing. Their blind spots are here and here. He pointed to specific areas on the holographic display. We move through these zones. The team adjusted their approach. Though exhausted, no one complained. Each volunteer had personal reasons for joining. Friends or colleagues lost in the attack, or simply the conviction that humanity must stand together. Private Sun, the youngest team member, approached Min during a break. Is it true the Concordate banned us from developing the weapons we'd need? Min nodded. Part of our protectorate agreement, military technology must be approved. So what are we using? Sun asked, gesturing to their equipment. Tools, Min replied with a grim smile. Mining explosives, medical scanners, industrial cutting equipment. Nothing classified as weapons under their definitions. In another section, doctors prepared medical teams for the unique challenges of treating potential injuries in space and under alien conditions. They had studied the limited information available on Vorlax biology, discovering potential vulnerabilities that might prove useful. Their sensory organs are highly sensitive, Dr. Yoon explained to her team. What would be merely unpleasant light patterns to us could be incapacitating to them. The ship that would carry the rescue team sat in the largest chamber. Officially registered as a deep space mining vessel, it had been extensively modified. Its engines incorporated principles reverse-engineered from studying Concordate ships, and its hull contained materials designed to confuse Vorlax sensors. Ambassador Song arrived as Park was inspecting the ship. After the Concordate's refusal, she had requested reassignment from diplomatic duties to the rescue operation. The Concordate representatives are growing suspicious, she informed Park. They've requested access to our satellite production facilities. Delay. Them, Park replied. We need 3 more days. I've cited religious holidays and technical difficulties, Song said. But they're not stupid, just arrogant. Park ran his hand along the ship's hull. Their arrogance is our advantage. They think we'll accept their decision because we have no choice. And we don't, Song acknowledged. Not with their technology. But we're not using their technology, Park corrected. We're using our own, adapted to what we've learned about theirs. Humans have always been good at improvising. 48 hours later, the ship, named Determination, prepared for launch. The rescue team made final checks on their equipment while Park and Song briefed them one last time. The Vorlax research facility orbits their homeworld's second moon, Park explained, showing the holographic display. According to our intelligence, the captives are held in these sections. Your primary mission is rescue, Song emphasized. Not revenge. Captain Min nodded, though several team members looked less convinced. We understand. Get our people and return without starting a war. The Concordate will be furious, Park admitted, but they'll have to acknowledge our right to protect our own. As the team boarded, Min paused beside Sun, who was checking her equipment nervously. First mission? Min asked. Sun nodded. My sister worked in communications on Jaeyang Station. Min placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll do everything possible to bring back everyone we can. The launch was disguised as a routine satellite deployment. By the time Concordate sensors detected anything unusual, Determination had already activated its experimental drive and disappeared from tracking systems. The journey took 5 days. The team trained constantly, preparing for every scenario they could imagine. On the final day, Min gathered everyone in the ship's common area. Tomorrow we make history, he said simply. No human has ever attempted to board a Vorlax facility. They don't believe we can. That's our advantage. Sun raised her hand. What if we fail? Then others will try, Min answered without hesitation. Humanity doesn't abandon its own. The Concordat doesn't understand that about us. The Vorlax facility loomed before them, massive and alien. Its angular structure bristled with sensor arrays and defense systems designed to repel conventional attacks. But the human ship approached using adaptive stealth technology based on Earth-ocean predators, constantly shifting its energy signature to blend with background radiation. They boarded through a maintenance access point, using tools that cut through the hull without triggering alarms. Inside, they moved through service corridors, avoiding the main passageways where Vorlax personnel would detect them. When they encountered the first guards, they deployed devices that emitted light patterns specifically calibrated to disrupt Vorlax vision. The aliens collapsed, unable to process the visual assault. They never considered that their physiological advantages could be turned against them, Dr. Yoon observed as they secured the unconscious guards. Deeper in the facility, they located the human captives. Most were alive but weakened from various experiments. Jin, Min's brother, was barely conscious but recognized his rescuer. You came, he whispered. Of course, Min replied, helping him up. We always would. The escape proved more challenging than the infiltration. Alarms eventually sounded and the team had to fight their way back to their ship. They used every tool and trick they had prepared, exploiting weaknesses the Vorlax had never needed to defend against. When determination finally broke free from the moon's orbit with all 14 captives aboard, the Vorlax commanders were left stunned. No protectorate species had ever dared such an action, let alone succeeded. As they began the journey home, Sun approached Min in the medical bay where the rescued scientists were recovering. The Concordat will punish Earth for this, she said. Min nodded. Probably. But they'll also have to reconsider what humans are capable of. And the Vorlax? They've learned a lesson too, Min replied. Never make humans angry. The rescued scientists recovered slowly in a secure medical facility beneath Seoul. Most bore signs of experimentation, surgical scars, strange implants, and haunted expressions that suggested psychological trauma beyond the physical injuries. Despite their condition, they insisted on speaking with Earth's Defense Council immediately. Dr. Jin, still weak but determined, addressed the gathered leaders from his hospital bed. The room was sealed against electronic surveillance, with Concordat representatives deliberately excluded. They weren't just studying us, Jin explained, his voice hoarse. They were preparing. The Vorlax planned to invade Earth within 3 months. Director Park leaned forward. You're certain? Jin nodded grimly. I was kept in their strategic planning section. They view Earth as particularly valuable, our water resources, mineral deposits, and biological diversity. But mostly, they want humans. As slaves? Asked Sun, who had been assigned as security for the recovered scientists. As test subjects, Jin corrected. Our adaptability fascinates them. No species they've encountered can survive in so many environments or recover from injuries like we do. Ambassador Song, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. We must inform the Concordat. Even if they refuse the rescue mission, surely they won't allow a full invasion. The room fell silent until Jin laughed, a hollow sound with no humor. The Concordat knows. The Vorlax invasion has their tacit approval. Shocked murmurs filled the room until Park raised his hand for silence. Explain. I accessed their communication logs, Jin said. The Concordat has agreed not to interfere if the Vorlax limit their expansion to Earth and leave other protectorate worlds alone. They've written us off as acceptable losses to maintain galactic stability. The revelation sent Earth's leaders into emergency sessions. 3 days later, a Concordat delegation arrived, demanding explanations for the unauthorized rescue mission. They were met by Ambassador Song in a sparse conference room with only basic diplomatic courtesies. High Counselor Trill seemed genuinely puzzled by the cold reception. Your species has violated multiple provisions of the Protectorate Agreement. The Vorlax Empire has filed formal protests. How unfortunate for them, Song replied evenly. We have evidence they plan to invade Earth with concordant knowledge. Trill's skin rippled with blue patterns, a sign of agitation his species couldn't conceal. That is a serious accusation without merit. Song activated a display showing translated Vorlax communications. These logs suggest otherwise. After reviewing the evidence, Trill's tone became patronizing. Ambassador, you misunderstand galactics. Politics. The Vorlax consistently absorb developing species. Those who survive learn to serve adequately. Fighting would only increase casualties. So you expect us to surrender? Park asked from the doorway, having entered silently during the exchange. We expect you to be realistic, Elder Nisk replied. Your species has potential, but you are centuries from being able to defend yourselves against established powers. We appreciate your concern, Song said with practiced diplomacy, but humanity will make its own decisions regarding our survival. The Concordate representatives departed, clearly, believing Earth had no viable options. They failed to notice the increased activity at seemingly abandoned mining facilities or the repurposing of satellite networks for defense. For the next 2 months, Earth prepared. Nations pooled resources and shared technology. Factories operated continuously, producing what appeared to be civilian equipment that could serve multiple purposes. The Concordate observers, accustomed to species that developed linearly and transparently, missed the significance of human ingenuity and deception. On a Concordat monitoring station above Earth, an elderly historian named Voss reviewed historical archives while younger colleagues tracked human activities. Unlike most Concordat officials, Voss had spent decades studying obscure galactic history rather than administration. Curious, he muttered, comparing visual patterns between ancient records and recent human architectural developments. His assistant looked up. Something significant? Perhaps. Voss enlarged images of underground human facilities alongside ancient ruins from a distant sector. These construction methods shared distinctive characteristics with the terrors of Sector 9. The legends? His assistant scoffed. Those are just stories to frighten younglings. Not legends, Voss corrected. Historical facts, merely inconvenient ones. The only species that ever forced the early Concordat to negotiate rather than dictate terms. They vanished 50,000 years ago, but their engineering principles were distinctive. Before they could discuss further, alarm systems activated. The Vorlax invasion fleet had arrived at the edge of the solar system, 3 days earlier than expected. The Concordat observation team gathered to watch what they assumed would be a brief conflict before Earth's inevitable surrender. High Counselor Trill even invited Voss to observe. A regrettable necessity, Trill commented as the massive Vorlax ships approached Earth. But they'll preserve most of the population for study. Voss remained silent, continuing to compare historical data on his personal device. The Vorlax deployed as expected, positioning ships to neutralize Earth's known defensive capabilities before landing ground forces. But instead of facing orbital resistance, they found nothing. Earth appeared defenseless, its satellite network offline, its meager space forces nowhere to be seen. They're being sensible, Nisk observed, minimizing casualties by surrendering. The first Vorlax landing crafts descended toward major cities. Then everything changed. Hidden installations activated worldwide. The supposedly surrendered satellite network suddenly came online with modifications the Concordat observers couldn't identify. Energy signatures appeared in patterns that confused. Vorlax sensors, what are they doing? Trill demanded, his translator failing to hide his alarm. Humans had prepared psychological warfare specifically calibrated for Vorlax biology. Light patterns that disrupted their vision, sound frequencies that interfered with their neural functions. Landing parties found themselves disoriented and vulnerable to attacks from human forces using adapted mining tools and repurposed agricultural equipment. Impossible, Trill muttered as reports showed Vorlax forces retreating in disarray. They were assessed as a Category 3 threat at most. Voss finally looked up from his research, his eyes wide with realization. The genetic markers, construction, methods, adaptive thinking. It all aligns with the historical record. What are you suggesting? Trill demanded. The humans, Voss said quietly, are descendants of the terrors of Sector 9. Their adaptability, their unpredictable innovation, these aren't random traits. They're inherited from the only species that ever fought the Concordat to a standstill. Below them, Earth's defenders continued driving back the invasion forces with strategies no alien tactician had anticipated. The humans weren't fighting according to any recognized doctrine. They were improvising, adapting, turning weaknesses into strengths. If you're right, Nisk whispered, watching the unexpected battle unfold, we've made a terrible miscalculation. Voss nodded grimly. The ancient records had one consistent warning about the terrors: never make them angry. The Concordat emergency. Session convened in their Grand Council chamber, a vast space designed to accommodate representatives from 37 species. Today, however, all attention focused on just one species. Ambassador Song entered with Captain Min and a small security detail. Their steps echoed in the unusual silence. 2 weeks had passed since Earth had not merely repelled the Vorlax invasion, but systematically dismantled their fleet. The news had spread across the galaxy, causing ripples of disbelief and reassessment. Hi, Counselor Trill fidgeted with his translator device, clearly uncomfortable. Elder Nisk sat motionless, his usual confidence absent. Between them, the historian Voss reviewed notes on his datapad, occasionally glancing at the humans with scholarly fascination. The Concordat recognizes the representatives of Earth, Trill announced formally once the humans had taken their places at the center of the chamber. Song smiled politely. Humanity thanks the Concordat for their careful observation during our recent difficulties. We've learned much about galactic politics. The subtle emphasis on careful observation was not lost on the assembled aliens. Several shifted uncomfortably, recalling their decision to watch rather than assist. The Vorlax threat has been neutralized, Min added, his military posture perfect. Their attack fleet is disabled. Their leadership has surrendered to Earth authorities. Murmurs spread through the chamber. No protectorate species had ever captured Vorlax leaders, let alone forced to surrender. This is highly irregular, Nisk finally spoke. The Vorlax Empire controls 17 systems. They cannot simply surrender to a single planet. They didn't surrender to a planet, Min corrected. They surrendered to humanity. Their subject worlds have been offered independence or alliance with Earth. Trill rose from his seat, his skin flashing rapid colors of alarm. You cannot simply reorganize established territories. There are protocols, balances of power that have maintained stability for millennia. Yes, Song interrupted calmly. Protocols that didn't protect us. We've drafted new ones. She activated a holographic display showing a document titled The Human Protocol. The text appeared in multiple languages, including all major Concordat dialects. Earth is reclaiming its sovereign status, Song continued. We withdraw from the Protectorate Agreement, effective immediately. We will, however, offer alliance to any species seeking genuine partnership rather than domination. The chamber erupted in protests. Voices from dozens of species competed to be heard, most expressing outrage or disbelief. Only a few, notably representatives from other younger species, remained thoughtfully silent. Trill finally restored order by activating the chamber's acoustic dampeners. This is unprecedented. A protectorate cannot simply withdraw. We just did, Min stated flatly. Your options are to accept this peacefully, or... He left the alternative unspoken. Voss stepped forward, addressing his fellow council members. I have completed my analysis of human capabilities. They show unmistakable genetic and cultural parallels to the terrors of Sector 9. The chamber fell silent again. Even the youngest delegates knew those ancient stories. My research suggests humans are indeed their descendants, Voss continued. They possess the same adaptive intelligence, the same unpredictable innovation patterns, the same capacity to turn limitations into advantages. If this is true, a delegate from a distant system asked, why didn't they demonstrate these capabilities earlier? Song answered, because you didn't threaten what we value most, our people. The Vorlax took our scientists. The Concordat abandoned them. Both mistakes. The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued for sanctions against Earth. Others suggested military containment. The wiser voices counseled accommodation and true alliance. In the end, pragmatism prevailed. The Concordat voted, narrowly, to accept Earth's independence and the proposed human protocol, which established new guidelines for interspecies relations based on mutual respect, rather than hierarchical protectorate systems. 6 months later, Min stood on the observation deck of the new human embassy on Luna. Through the transparent ceiling, he watched Earth rise above the horizon, blue and beautiful and now truly free. Thinking about your brother? Asked Song, joining him at the viewport. Min nodded. He's recovering well. The research team is making progress on removing the Vorlax implants from all survivors. Below them, the embassy buzzed with activity. Delegations from 24 formerly subjugated worlds had arrived for the first summit of the new human-led alliance. Species that had lived under Vorlax rule for generations now sought partnership with the humans who had done the impossible. The Concordat representatives arrive tomorrow, Song said. Their first official visit as equals rather than overseers. Do you think they understand us any better now? Min asked. Song smiled slightly. They understand enough. They expected us to behave like every other species, to value survival above all else. They didn't realize that humans will risk everything when protecting our own. That was their mistake, Min agreed. That and underestimating how quickly we learn. A young aide approached, offering data tablets with the latest reports. The Vorlax territories have stabilized under the transition governments. 3 more. Systems have requested admission to the Alliance. Min reviewed the information with satisfaction. Have we received any response from the Concordat about sharing their advanced medical technology? Yes, sir. They've agreed to the exchange. Our agricultural innovations for their regeneration techniques. Progress, Song observed after the aide departed. Real cooperation rather than their previous condescension. Through another viewport, they could see a Concordat vessel approaching the lunar port. Its design had been modified, removing the hierarchical symbols that once designated it as a superior species craft. They're learning, Min said. Slowly, but learning. Song tapped her tablet, bringing up the final version of the human protocol that had now been adopted by 17 independent systems. At its core was a simple principle that had spread as unofficial doctrine among spacefaring races. Never make humans angry. Do you think we'll ever find evidence of our ancestors? Min asked, referring to the mysterious terrors of Sector 9. If Voss is correct about our connection to them? Perhaps, Song replied thoughtfully. But what matters more is what we build. Now, a galaxy where species stand as equals, not as rulers and subjects. Below them, Earth continued its eternal rotation, its people now known across the stars not merely as clever primitives, but as the species that changed the galaxy by refusing to abandon their own.